Alrighty, I am pleased to be joined by the host of the first round by Jose Arroeola. How's it going, Jose?
Man, it's going good, man. It's Saturday. I don't have to be at work today. So, I'm very blessed to be off today. So I'm excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the last minute notice. And we had some problems before, but thankfully, and at least hopefully now, we won't have any more problems. But again, thanks for coming on. Before we start talking about the championship games and the Super Bowl next week and all things related to the NFL, if you want to talk more about your podcast and all that good stuff.
Yes. So I'm co-host of the First Round By podcast. We're based out of Oklahoma City. We've been doing this for maybe about 8 months, really the beginning of this season. So we're still fairly new. We talk all football, so NFL football, college football, and we'll throw some fantasy football in there too. But mainly we kind of stick to the NFL. That's kind of like our bread and butter. But we don't want to just stick to the NFL. We kind of just want to branch out and do that. And we got some exciting stuff coming up. Obviously the off season's coming. So we got some stuff coming up. So if you're interested, make sure you go check out the podcast, and we'll tell you guys what we have in the future.
All right. Again, if you're don't forget to check out the First Round By podcast. The links will be down in the description below. Before we talk about the championship game, you were talking about you're a Brady fan. Brady, of course, made the shocking news. Well, technically it was until Tuesday, but Schefter broke the news early. But Brady's officially done. Were you surprised that he hung up the cleats?
I was, but I wasn't. Mainly because he's been in the league for 22 years. You know what I mean? Like everybody knew he was going to retire sometime soon. But personally, I didn't think he was going to go out the way that he did. I was kind of saying that he was going to come back for one more year, maybe try to get one more championship. Yeah, he has 7, but I thought he was going to go back and shoot for one more, considering how they went out, to the Rams. It was a great game. But and Tom Brady, he actually said so himself. I want to say it was maybe like a couple years ago. He was saying he wasn't going to stop playing football until he sucked. And he's still playing at a complete high level right now. And, he kind of just he lied to all of us. He said what he said, but, I'm happy for him. He had a hell of a career. Obviously the GOAT. So I'm excited to see what he does in the future, man.
Yeah, and I was a little surprised too. I thought he was going one more year, really, and I thought the only way that Brady would retire is if he had a career injury that really wasn't able to go. So I was still a little surprised, but I think more of his family. I think he retired more because of his family, and he already pretty much accomplished everything he needed to do. And of course, he's almost 45 or just about to turn 45. So, I mean, he doesn't necessarily really need to come back. And it's going to be interesting what Tampa does now, because now they're in need of a quarterback. I did hear some rumors of Rodgers. I don't think that's going to happen, but what do you think Tampa's going to do now? I know they have Kyle Trask. I don't think Blaine Gabbert's the answer, but what do you think Tampa's going to do moving forward, the quarterback position without Brady?
Just before I hopped onto the podcast, I was kind of just scrolling on Facebook and I saw something kind of crazy. Apparently, there was someone sharing that there's a possibility that they might bring Jameis Winston back. So I don't know how, accurate the article is, but apparently it was like in talks. But that'd be kind of crazy. And do you think Jameis Winston would actually want to go back to the Bucs? You know what I mean? After what they did to him, and you know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty interesting. So I think they might go into rebuild mode though. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, and that's another thing too with the Buccaneers, because I mean, it wouldn't be a terrible option to bring back Jameis Winston, because he played really well in New Orleans until his injury. Of course, New Orleans might need a quarterback too. I'm not sure what they're thinking of, but I feel like depending on how much money Tampa was willing to offer Winston, because if they're willing to offer him a massive contract, I think he would let bygones be bygones and just re-sign with them. But I'm not sure necessarily Bruce Arians wants to do that. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, especially with how the NFL is. It just, I mean, the things you don't think is going to happen ends up happening. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Winston did go back, but I got a feeling he's just going to stay with New Orleans and signs 1 year deal or something. But it's going to be a crazy offseason with how much the quarterbacks are going to move. Like a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, for instance, he's probably out of San Francisco. But speaking of Jimmy Garoppolo, where do you think he lands this offseason?
I haven't given that much thought. For sure, I don't see him staying in the 49ers. That was kind of just a nasty ending to the championship game. And, he's been kind of rocky all year. He's been having to rely a lot on the running game and on that defense. But maybe, I don't know, like you said, like it just depends on where other quarterbacks go. You know what I mean? So I don't feel like he's going to be like a high targeted quarterback. So I feel like once, Aaron Rodgers settles in and the Jameis Winston and whoever the heck else is a free agent or gets traded, then he's going to start to, weigh his options, I guess.
A lot of people right now are saying Pittsburgh, and I feel like Pittsburgh would be a pretty good fit, and he technically right now, well, when he signed that contract with the 49ers, it was pretty high. Now it's kind of team friendly. Do you think Pittsburgh would try to make that move to go for Garoppolo? Because I don't think the answer is in the draft this year, and they have too late of a pick to get a quarterback. But do you think Pittsburgh would do you think Garoppolo would fit well in Pittsburgh?
I honestly don't think Pittsburgh would actually even go for Garoppolo. Like, I feel like they have the pieces already to compete for a championship. They just need the quarterback, right? If they're going to go for a quarterback, I believe they're going to go for somebody like Aaron Rodgers. So I don't really foresee them going for Garoppolo, but worst case scenario, I guess probably see them going for him, but there's definitely better options out there at quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be, it just like I said, there's Aaron Rodgers, of course, Russell Wilson, like I said, Jameis Winston. There's quarterbacks like Teddy Bridgewater that I guess is a free agent. I mean, with the Saints not having Sean Payton anymore, do they want to get rid of Taysom Hill? Who's going to want to take that contract? Of course, the other quarterback too in the room is Aaron Rodgers, and a lot of people are speculating that he's out of Green Bay, which I think he is too. But a lot of people are speculating he ends up going to Denver. Although there was rumors recently that he might want to, or he's got a home, or he bought a home recently in Nashville, and maybe he wants to play with the Titans. I mean, do you think that could be a possibility for Rodgers?
Man, anything's a possibility, man. Especially with Rodgers, he can go wherever the heck he wants. I mean, because he's not a free agent, correct?
I think he's got at least one more year left.
Right. So I feel like they're going to respect him enough for everything that he's done for that organization to kind of put him in a situation where he wants to be put in. You know what I mean? But I really like the idea of him going to the Titans. They have a pretty strong team, a pretty decent defense. You got Coach Rabel. He's a pretty solid mind. But I actually spoke about it on one of my podcasts. I would love, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see Aaron Rodgers on the 49ers with that team that they have already.
Well, that would be wild. And he wanted to go to San Francisco last draft, but with them trading 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance, I don't think it's going to happen. And I think Lance is going to be good. He kind of was a little shaky this year, but give him a year under his belt or whatever. But San Francisco is the preferred destination, but I think with what the Niners did with Trey Lance, they can't do that with Rodgers. And they, like I said, invested so much with Trey Lance. And besides, if the Packers really want to trade Rodgers to an NFC team and a team like the 49ers, who were pretty much just a quarterback away from being really good. And of course, they've got good running backs, but they can never stay healthy. Or even if the Niners didn't draft Trey Lance, I feel like it'd be hard to see the Packers trade him to the Niners because of the same conference. They play at least once a year. I can't see that happening. But, again, like the NFL, anything can happen. Another quarterback too. Well, let's go to the coaching vacancies that just got filled. The Vikings just recently hired, or they're about to hire, Kevin O'Connell for the Rams. Did that surprise you a little bit, especially with the Harbaugh news?
A little bit. I thought Harbaugh was going to come back to the NFL, but I'm actually kind of surprised that he stuck to the college ball. I was kind of really excited, but that did kind of surprise me a little bit.
Do you think Kevin O'Connell, he had some success with the Rams as offensive coordinator, of course. And I think, too, being under Sean McVay really helps you. Kind of like if you're under Belichick, you're probably going to get a job in the future. But do you think Kevin O'Connell can have success right off the bat, especially if Rodgers does get traded out of the NFC North? Do you think he can have success with the Vikings right away?
I think if he goes in with the right mindset, it also depends on what the Vikings do with Kirk Cousins. I'm not a really big believer in Kirk Cousins. I know this past year he didn't do terrible, but I just don't like him leading, or I don't see him leading a team into the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So I don't know how far they can go. Like I said, with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and the thing with the Vikings is, for the most part, with Zimmer, they always had a really good defense, but this year, the defense was kind of one of their weak points. And they have such a good team on the offense. Of course, they have Cousins, who surprisingly has really good stats. They have Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the league outside of Derrick Henry. They have 2 great receivers in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Now, the tight ends are a little shaky, but Irv Smith missed most of the season this year. And the offensive line, I think, was pretty solid. I just think the defense for the first time really under Zimmer was kind of disappointing. And I think that was kind of their weak point. But I think O'Connell can have success. And I think the Vikings, if Rodgers leaves the NFC North, I think the Vikings should win that division because, again, what are the Bears going to do? Is Matt Eberflus the answer? I mean, will Justin Fields? He didn't have a great rookie year. And of course, he didn't have a great team around him. But I mean, I think the Vikings, if Rodgers leaves, they'll be the team of the NFC North. And let's be honest, the NFC North was garbage outside of Green Bay this year. I mean,
yeah,
the Vikings finished second and they were 8-9. Like that was just, and the NFC North most of the time is pretty tough. But, and of course, Detroit, I think they've got the right coach at Dan Campbell, but I think they're still a few years away. But what do you think about the other hiring? The Jaguars hired Doug Peterson. I think for once they made the right decision. I thought they were going to hire Byron Leff, which we talked about that in my last episode. But what do you think about Doug Peterson in Jacksonville?
Man, I love it. He's a great coach. Obviously led the Eagles to the Super Bowl, if I'm correct. And he's been around the league for a long time. He knows what he's doing. And Trevor Lawrence, he's going to have a good coach to kind of mentor him and take him under his wing. And I feel like like I said, he's a good coach. He knows what he's doing. He's going to know how to draft players, and I'm actually excited about this, man.
And speaking of Trevor Lawrence, he kind of had he didn't have a great rookie season either. I think he threw more interceptions than touchdowns, but of course it was the Jaguars. They were the worst team in the league again. But do you think Doug Peterson can make Trevor Lawrence and it might be a little early too, but do you think he can have success with them right away and possibly get the Jags into the playoffs?
That's a tough one, man. Because I didn't really watch a whole lot of Jaguars football this year, but I feel like if they can get him the help that he needs, like I don't know if it's running back help, receiver help, or O-line defense. I don't know exactly what the pieces that he's missing, but if give him the O-line, give him the receivers, give him the defense, whatever. Because I mean, he's a smart quarterback. Obviously, we saw him play at an elite level in college right off the start. But yeah, he's a great mind, and I feel like maybe not right off the start he'll have success, but maybe like a couple years into Doug Peterson's system, then we can probably start seeing some good out of him.
Well, I think they have the answer at running back, or at least as of now, with James Robinson. He was good last year despite Urban Meyer benching him. But I think really everything else they just need help with. And I mean, to be honest with you, not a lot of people watch Jags football because they're never on prime time outside of maybe, I don't even know if they were on prime. Oh, they were on the game with the Bengals. That's right. They're usually on Thursday nights, but not a lot of people watch the Jaguars outside unless you're a Jags fan. But I think, like I said, if Doug Peterson, now the Jaguars have to be patient with Doug Peterson because I think they're not going to make the playoffs in probably till year 3. I could see them making improvements in year 1 and 2. If they can win 5 or 6 games in this upcoming season, I think that's a success. Of course, Trevor Lawrence has got to be smart with the football, but of course, when you don't have really a team around you, you can't do a whole lot. But I think with how Doug Peterson was able to develop Carson Wentz when he had those 2 or 3 really good years in Philly, and then of course Nick Foles made the run. But I think, like I said, it's going to take some time, but I think by year 3, the Jaguars, and again, the AFC South outside of the Titans is not very good. The Colts were kind of disappointing, especially toward the end, and they're not sure if Carson Wentz is their answer at quarterback. But what do you think about the Colts? Do you think Carson Wentz is the answer for the Colts, or do you think they'll get rid of him after this or during this offseason?
I don't think they'll get rid of him, but I feel like maybe he has a year left. I'm a Texas fan. If you didn't know, I'm a big Texas fan, and Sam Ehlinger, I feel like he might have a chance to kind of prove himself. He's always kind of been like that. I guess he's always had that chip on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he's really tough mentally. He throws good passes, runs the ball hard. I feel like if Carson Wentz gets out of there, hopefully they give Sam a chance. I don't know if you've seen many highlights of him, but I mean, he's a tough quarterback. But I also see them kind of maybe going after Rodgers. You know what I mean? That team is good. They have a pretty good defense. Obviously, you got JT back there, and the receiving core is pretty strong. So, it's exciting.
Rodgers to the Colts would actually make a lot of sense because the Colts are in the AFC. I don't think they play the Packers for another 2 years, I think is how it works. So that would actually not be that would actually be a pretty solid trade. It just, what would the Colts be able to trade? And I don't think they have a first round pick this year with the Eagles when they traded for Wentz, but they could probably do what the Rams did with Stafford, where they traded 3 first round picks and they were 2022 or actually I think they were only 2. It was 2022 and 2023 because they didn't have a first rounder in 2021, but I could see that happening. Of course, the Colts, they have almost everything. They have a great defense, a good offensive line. Of course, they have Jonathan Taylor, who had such a great year at it could possibly been an MVP because he had some down games, but Jonathan Taylor was an MVP candidate. He doesn't have the best weapons. I guess he still has guys like Michael Pittman. I don't think T.Y. Hilton, he's a free agent this year, so he probably won't resign. They have some solid tight ends, but yeah, the Colts would make a lot of sense as well. It's just depending on how much they could trade for him, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Colts. And I think Chris Ballard, the GM, kind of sold or kind of put Carson Wentz under the bus by saying, we're tired of, bringing in Band-Aids at quarterback. But did you think Chris Ballard was going at Carson Wentz and saying, you think he was just trying to, motivate him? Or what do you think he was actually trying to get at Carson Wentz?
I haven't heard that before, but yeah, I mean, he might have been taking a shot at the head coach or whoever's making the calls at the quarterback position. But I mean, because it's true though, because I mean, you went from Andrew Luck to who the heck they bring in after him?
I think they had Brissett for 1 year.
Brissett, Rivers, Wentz. I mean, every year you can't have a new quarterback every year, especially if you want to be in that playoff, contention. If you want to make the Super Bowl, you got to stick to a quarterback, man. And granted, there has been quarterbacks that have played in the system for a year or two, and I mean, look at Joe Burrow, but that's not the case all the time. You know what I mean? You got to stick to a quarterback. Let him grow, let him learn the system, and then you can move forward and try to make the playoffs. But I mean, I see where he's going with that. You know what I mean? Maybe taking shots at the coach, or maybe even try to motivate him.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with the Colts. Really, I mean, with how the AFC South outside of the Titans is wide open, and I think the Colts can rebound next year. And I thought they were going to make the playoffs, but I think they lost their final 2 games, and they for some reason always struggle when they go to Jacksonville. I don't know why, but they always struggle there, and that ended up knocking them out of the playoffs officially.
Mm-hmm.
So. I mean, we'll see what happens there. Now, you were talking, I don't know if it was on your last episode or not, but I just saw a clip on Instagram that said, or that video that you were talking about with Josh McDaniels with the Raiders now and Dave Ziegler as the GM. He was also with the Patriots for a little bit as well. You thought maybe there was a chance, and I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe there was a chance of Tom Brady becoming his offensive coordinator, maybe down the road. Do you think that could actually happen, or do you think Brady will just, lay low for now?
I think it's a long shot, man. And like we talked before we hopped on the podcast, like he's been in the league for 22 years. I mean, he's got nothing else to prove, and I'm sure his wife and his kids want him at home, and they want him around, every year it's the same, go to practice, and do game prepping and all that. So I'm sure he's kind of tired of all that. If he wasn't, he'd probably stick around at least for another year, but I mean, it's a possibility. I'm not saying never in a million years. I would love that, but I see more no than yes.
And again, I don't know if Brady actually wants to be a coach, but I could see him for the next few years just kind of laying low, maybe doing commercials part-time. I think that's kind of what Peyton Manning did until he's still doing that, but he's more of like a part-time announcer really. But I could see that happening. I'd love to see him go on if they do the Manning cast this upcoming season. I would love to see Tom Brady in there as well, a few more than just once, because I think he was on there last season, but it'd be nicer to see him and Peyton talk more, and Eli as well. But there's a possibility, I guess, of that, but I'm not sure Brady's necessarily looking to be an offensive coordinator. It would just be interesting if that actually happened.
Right.
So is there anything else you want to add to that, or?
Not right now. I mean, if you think about it though, I mean, if he did go back to the Pats to coach, I mean, how great would that be to take Mac Jones under his wing and kind of develop him? And we saw a lot of good out of Mac Jones. So, the only way from here is up for him. So,
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens there, but I think more Brady, like you, is just kind of lay low for a while. He's got money. He doesn't necessarily need to really do anything as of now. Let's talk about the championship games. Of course, let's start with the first game. The Bengals do the unthinkable and upset the Chiefs. And let's go to the late first half, the last play of the first half, where the Chiefs lead 21-3. They have a chance to kick that field goal or try to extend the lead. They try to extend the lead, and it doesn't work. If you were in that position before the play, would you have kicked the field goal, or would you have actually tried to score to extend that lead more?
Oh, for me, for sure, I'd probably kick that field goal. You know what I mean? It's a championship game, man. You can't sit there and I get it. There's certain situations or certain games where you want to be aggressive. You want to go for that fourth down when it's 4th and inches, 4th and 1, whatever. Or, there's going to be times where you're going to be put in a situation where, you're either going to try to extend the lead by 7 or by 3. And sometimes you're not going to do either. But whenever it's a game like that and you're up 21-3, you got to take the points, man, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, of course, it's easier for us to say now, but when the game was happening, it was like, just kick the field goal, because it could have won the game for him right there. Instead of that late drive in the second half, instead of to tie it and go in overtime, they could have actually won it. But, I mean, the Chiefs, of course, are definitely a team that they're aggressive, and you've got Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league. But I just think that, just take the points. You'll be up 24-3. I think that was a huge momentum boost to the Bengals, and one reason why they ended up winning that game. I mean, do you think the Bengals have a shot next Sunday?
Man, it's the Super Bowl. Anything's possible, man. But man, I'm I don't hate either team. Like I said, I'm a big football fan, so I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, you suck or I hate you, whatever. But I don't know, man. Of course they have a chance to win. First and foremost, they have a chance to win, but they gotta play perfect football. You're going against the Rams that has Matthew Stafford. A lot of the players have experience. You got Sean McVay that's coming back, to the Super Bowl. He's been there once. He lost. So this team, obviously they got Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, on the defensive side of the ball. They're hungry. And, for like Aaron Donald, this isn't his first rodeo at Super Bowl. So he wants that ring. So Joe Burrow has to put on a show like he has been for the past, 3 or 4 weeks. It's going to be a great game. And, if the Bengals win, man, we got to start thinking as Joe Burrow is one of the better quarterbacks in the league for sure.
Well, the thing about Joe Burrow think about the Bengals, they're like 3 or 4 years ahead of schedule. I didn't even think they were going to make the playoffs, really. I thought they were going to, I thought they were going to end up finishing the year like 8-9 or 7-10 and show improvement, right? But they just didn't have quite enough. But they ended up winning the division first and foremost. They ended up, of course, beating the Raiders, which I think they were the favorite, but a lot of people saw the Raiders getting an upset there, including myself. And they beat the Titans. And even though Tannehill was a little suspect in that game, and then of course they go out and beat the Chiefs, who a lot of people thought could not repeat, but win again for the second time in 3 years. So the Bengals, again, in my opinion, they're 3 or 4 years ahead of schedule. And of course they do have a chance. That was kind of not the best question in the world, but I think, again, they have to play perfect football, as you mentioned. They can't turn the ball over. You're going against a Rams team that's very experienced, very talented. Most of those guys have been in this situation before. The Rams, of course, a few years ago lost to the Patriots. I think they're going to score more than 3 points. Again, when you have a much better quarterback in Stafford than Jared Goff. Of course, like you said, you got Stafford, you got Cooper Kupp, you got Odell Beckham, you got a pretty solid tight end in Tyler Higbee. The offensive line is good. And then, of course, you got guys like Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel. And, of course, Cam Akers can't turn the ball over like he did against the Buccaneers. But it's going to be so hard for the Bengals to play or to win because they're going to have to play complete clean football. They can't turn the ball over. They got to be almost perfect. Now, Zach Taylor worked under Sean McVay, so maybe for a few years, so maybe he knows something. But I can't necessarily see this to be a close game. But before we talk about our predictions, overall, what did you think of the NFC Championship game last week?
NFC Championship. It was a good game, man. I kind of expected the Rams to kind of pull out of it. They're just a strong team, man. And even before the season started, that was kind of one of my favorites to kind of go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, they got, after they acquired a freaking Matthew Stafford. I mean, we saw what he did with the Lions, and he did that with the Lions. I mean, they didn't win many games in his tenure there, but I mean, Matthew Stafford. He has a great arm. So I wasn't really surprised with the outcome, and I'm excited to watch this game. Like I said.
Yeah, and the thing about the Rams too is, they've got, like I said, they traded for Stafford in the offseason. They made the bold move of doing that, and a lot of people thought they were Lions won that trade because Stafford's not worth that many picks. But most of those guys didn't even watch the Lions only on Thanksgiving because that was the only primetime game they got, and that's not even really considered a primetime game. So what Stafford was able to do in Detroit, and again, it wasn't really his fault. When he had a really good coach in Jim Caldwell, the Lions for some reason fired him after they went 9-7, which is really good for the Lions. So, I mean, just the way they were able to do this year. And, of course, they come back down from 17-7 in the fourth quarter. And now that's twice for Garoppolo that he's had a 10-point lead in the postseason and has led it and has ended up losing. So it's another thing, too, that kind of shows you that the Niners, it's probably time to move on from Garoppolo. But on the Rams side, it's just they're so impressive. They got so many good players. And even though they don't have the best fan base in the world, it's just going to be hard for that team to lose. And I was very impressed, especially in that fourth quarter. They had some chances in that first half where they had the drop pass in the end zone. They had it, Stafford threw the interception. They had a missed field goal on Matt Gay's part. So they had some definitely miscues in that first half, but they played a great fourth quarter. That's kind of why they won the game. Really, they were down 17-7. But I mean, I'm impressed with that Rams team. It's going to be hard to beat them. But do you have a Super Bowl prediction?
I'm actually shooting a podcast tomorrow, and it's going to be centered around the Super Bowl, right? And I haven't actually sat there and gave my prediction thought, but just right off the bat, I'm probably going to have to go with the Rams 30-27, maybe how the playoffs have been going on a last second field goal or something, or maybe even going to overtime, but I definitely got the Rams as of now, 30-27.
To be honest with you, that's a good score. I think right now the Rams are like a 3.5 point favorite, or that's how they opened up. But I just can't really see it being that close of a game. I could see it being close early, and then the Bengals make a few turnovers. Like I said, Burrow throws a few interceptions or fumbles it once or twice. So I could see this game being like 38-17 or something like that. But it's just, like I said, the Rams are almost like the Bengals have to play pretty much a perfect game. They have to play the best game of their season this year. They have to play even better than when they played against the Chiefs, especially when they're playing in the Rams home turf. So, and besides too, here's an interesting fact too, like the Rams are wearing the away jerseys. Most teams that win the away jersey, I think it's like 34-21 or something. Mm-hmm. So that's even going to be harder. So I think the Rams win this game 38-17, and, no disrespect to Bengals fans. I have actually a friend who's a Bengals fan, but they just don't have enough, in my opinion, to beat them. But I mean, anything can happen. It's the Super Bowl. But it's especially in the Rams home turf. But now that we're kind of talking off the Super Bowl, and I forgot to mention this early, but do you think Russell Wilson is out of Seattle?
I think he is. I haven't given much thought as to where he could possibly go. Do you happen to know if he's a free agent?
No, I think he's still got at least 1 or 2 years left in his deal. And I think the only way he can leave is getting traded.
Right.
So,
but I know because last year in the offseason, everything was kind of like in question. Like, is Russell Wilson coming back? Does Pete Carroll still want him? Like, what's going on? And, of course, the season started and, they're there. I believe, Russell Wilson, and he had his first losing season at the Seahawks this year. So I don't know, that it's getting kind of rocky. So I don't think he'll be there. He might be, but I don't think he will be. Don't know where he could potentially be traded to. But it'll be interesting following.
Well, similar to Lamar Jackson, he's kind of that, at least all of their offense. Like they have DK Metcalf. They have a lot of good play. They have some decent players on there, but it's pretty much all Russell Wilson on that team. So I think he's going to end up leaving too. I mean, I guess he could go to Denver as well. I guess he could go to the Raiders maybe. I mean, he could maybe end up in Minnesota. See what the Vikings still have to think what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins. Maybe he goes to Cleveland. But again, they have to figure out what they're going to do with Mayfield. I mean, there's just so many possibilities. Yeah. I mean, the Panthers and Eagles, I think they're open to trading for a quarterback because we all know the Sam Darnold experiment did not work in Carolina. I don't know if the Jalen Hurts experiment worked. I mean, they made the playoffs, but like, are they sold on Hurts? I don't think they are. I think Hurts is a solid quarterback, but I don't think the Eagles think that. So, I mean, there's some possibilities, but I think he also has a trade clause I think he has some type of, I think he can choose or has a few teams he can choose. Like, I don't think he can choose the exact team, but I think he has I think he can kind of say who he doesn't want to go to and wants to go to according to the contract, I think is how it works. So he has some type of trade clause in there that I know of. So, and I guess, and another quarterback too, that could maybe get traded. And this is just such a bad situation right now, but do you think Deshaun Watson even plays this upcoming season?
I don't think he plays anymore. Wow. I don't know what's going on with the situation. Obviously, it went from like, maybe he'll be playing this year to no, to his situation getting worse and worse. So it's very interesting. I don't know if people want somebody that has that kind of history. And I don't know. It's interesting. Do I want him to play? Yes, of course. He's, in my opinion, when he's playing and healthy, he's top 5 quarterback in the league without a doubt. But I don't know if a team will take him.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And yeah, I don't think they've moved anywhere in the allegations. I think they're up to 24 now or something like that. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. And I guess rumored this is what the GM for the Texans wanted, Nick Sirianni. I think he wanted like 6 first-round picks, and then he wanted some players. So I don't think that's going to happen, especially with a guy like Deshaun Watson, all the allegations he has. But I mean, the Dolphins originally wanted him, but I think they're going to keep Tua now that Brian Flores is no longer there. But I mean, I guess Washington could too as well, but they're dealing with some stuff too right now. And speaking of Washington, what do you think about their new nickname, the Commanders?
I think it's terrible, man. Like, dude, you had like what 2 years to come up with the name, and you come up with the Commanders. I'm sorry, Commanders fans, but I feel for you.
I think most people on social media hated it. I thought they should have just went with the Hogs. Like the Hogs would have been a sick name.
Yeah. Or the Red Tails, I know that was one.
I know the Wolves they couldn't do, or the Wolves and Red Wolves, because of copyright issues with other clubs who had that name. And I think they thought about doing the like Washington DC or the Washington FC, but the problem is they had some other like copyright issues or something. So that was understandable. But yeah, like the Red Tails or the Red Hogs, or not the Red Hogs, but the Hogs. They could have went with a lot of things, but like Commanders, that's a bit iffy. But
I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like the football team is a better option than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like the Commanders is just too much of a general name. Like,
yeah.
What exactly would be a commander? Would you talk about like the military, or like, I don't know. I just think that I think it was just kind of they could have done better, as you mentioned. And like, I don't know. It's the Washington franchise. Like they're a whole mess as a whole. So I guess it doesn't necessarily matter if you're not a Washington fan, but like, I feel sorry for those, I guess, Commander fans now. Right.
Yeah.
And again, thanks again for coming on. Do you want to add anything else before we end the interview?
Hey man, I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I was just at my own business yesterday, and you kind of hit me up out of nowhere. I was like, is this a spam? And we're here, but thanks for having me. Maybe I can come on again in the future, or maybe I can have you on my podcast, man. And it was a pleasure.
All right. Sounds great. Again, thanks for coming on. Don't forget to check out the First Round Bye podcast. Thanks again for coming on, Jose, and have a wonderful night and the rest of the week, and enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yes, sir. Likewise. And go Pats.